Hello and welcome to the future of MedTech. I have the absolute privilege of sitting down with Maggie Nixon, the CEO of Capstan Medical. Maggie, thank you so much for joining us on this future of surgical robotics.
It's awesome to be here.
So, Maggie, I always like to start my conversations with a little bit of background, but to make it really specific to surgical robotics, what about surgical robotics is so intriguing that brought you here today?
Yeah. So I had the absolute privilege of stumbling into surgical robotics back in 2000. I happened to get my first job with Intuitive Surgical, which was, kind of has led the way in surgical robotics. And so I was a brand new engineer coming out of school and was connected through a babysitting family that I had.
Stop.
Power of networks, right? And was connected to Dan Wallace, who was leading the instrument team at Intuitive Surgical. And I spent the following 20 plus years there. And so really saw like how surgical robotics has evolved and how it has just really changed what you can do minimally invasively for patients. Yeah.
I was going to move on, but now I can't. You can't tell me that you had a connection through babysitting. So
Yeah.
what about your education? Did that help support this role? Or were you just the best babysitter and you knew that your potential was limitless?
So it's interesting. Every student that is finishing up their degree is all of a sudden trying to build a network and find connections into the industry that they want to be in. And so I had really wanted to be in medical device. I thought I wanted to be in like orthopedic implants and whatnot. I had come from the Midwest. There's a lot of really incredible companies in the Midwest that are in that space. And I had gotten a mechanical engineering degree and was trying to find my way. When you have no network, you tap into every human you know. And one of the families that I was babysitting for said, I was at Stanford School of Business. I'll send your resume over to, my graduating class. And that happened to have one of the VCs that was investing in Intuitive Surgical at the time passed along a resume saying, hey, there's a new engineer here, and somehow got an interview and went from there. Yeah.
Those are sometimes my absolute favorite stories because you don't know what you don't know what you don't know. And now, I mean, just looking at your face and how you're glowing when you talking about surgical robotics, clearly you found a fit.
Oh, it was incredible. So I couldn't have asked for a better opportunity. The company was small at that point. I think it was less than 100 people, and it was really in the infancy. I was on the original cardiac team for Intuitive. I was working on mitral valve repair and cardiac revascularization back in the day when Intuitive was a cardiac company before they pivoted to the broad applications that they have these days. Yeah.
Well, speaking about broad applications, let's talk about some of the challenges when you do broaden a portfolio or you take on more. So when we think about surgical robotics today, what do you see as being the primary challenges?
Well, how much time do we have, right? No, robotics are complex. The interesting thing, how I view robotics, is that complexity in the technology is intended to be simple and streamlined for the user. It's letting them do things that are really challenging, but in an easier way.
More
but there's,
I had to.
But come on, we're not supposed to use that. But it's really trying to solve for what they're seeking to do clinically, make it more minimally invasive, less impactful on the patient with all of the benefits of the interventions that are there. And that's where I think robots have an incredible capability to come in and be a powerful tool in the hands of clinicians in order to serve those patients. And so sometimes robotics feel really big and complex and whatnot, but I think that intention is to just be enabling clinically.
So I can definitely see where the challenges are starting to crop up from what you're saying here. So if you are trying to take a technology and you're trying to meet the user, so the clinician in this case, how do you reconcile I'm thinking the human factors part of it. So how do you reconcile making a tool part of the clinician?
Yeah.
Is that a challenge, and
Yeah.
what do we do with that?
And so I think a lot of it is trying things out in partnership with clinicians. So some of it is having engineers that lean toward a clinical aptitude, a clinical skill set, and they can be an early user as you're going through the development. But then when you have something, it's about getting those clinicians in-house, trying things out, giving them different things to interact with, even during the development phase. Then once you kind of are settling on your architecture and your capabilities and your user interfaces, then you kind of move into the more diligently testing those to make sure that they are broadly applicable to many users. But I think it's involving those users early on in your development for sure.
It definitely makes a lot of sense. And before we sort of shift to how the industry is responding, are there do any other challenges come to mind?
Yeah, I think there's. I'm in the thick of it on a day to day right now. We're mapping out what our regulatory strategy is. Like these are, as we said, complex pieces of equipment. How do we partner with regulatory agencies in order to navigate the pathways effectively? In our product, we have an implantable as well as the robotic system, and so
So
we're trying to
choose-
navigate both of those elements in this space.
that is not a simple pathway forward. So I could see why there was some tension
Yeah.
when I said the word challenge, because there's so many
Yeah.
challenges around it, especially when you started in surgical robotics. You said in 2000.
2000, yeah.
So we're at 25 years from now, but it still feels so new.
Mhm.
And just because maybe the technology has really started to evolve 25 years ago doesn't mean that the regulatory pathways and how the industry accepts the technology has been 25
Yeah.
years.
I think we're just scratching the surface on what robotics can bring to clinicians. And I think you're seeing that with the explosion of robotic platforms that are coming out there right now. I think it's because they're trying to optimize the toolkit for those clinicians to do the different things that they want to do. So
that sounds like one of the ways that the industry is responding to the challenges. So software as a service or some sort of a data integration. I mean, how's the industry responding to?
I think a lot of it is you're starting to see more companies like Capstan, right? You're seeing companies that are Capstan is targeting structural heart. It's not trying to do everything. It's trying to bring a curated set of technologies to cardiologists so that they can better serve their patients' needs, right? So I think we're starting to see some specialization, but it's founded on those same core, enablers that robotics bring, kind of integration of preoperative imaging into your procedures. It's bringing good fidelity of motion and control and precision into the interventions. Those are that's what we want to stock the clinician's toolkit with. Yeah,
Definitely. You mentioned when you were kind of talking about the challenge and like the regulatory pathway, and then you mentioned partnering with associations.
Mhm.
Is that another way that the industry is responding to some of these challenges by offering support, collaborative support?
Well, it's interesting. I think it's all about engaging early, like trying to work with, kind of the regulatory bodies in order to make sure that we're on target for what they would like to see coming from us. And I think it's part of our responsibility to educate those reviewers and regulators about what, your, piece of equipment, as well as what's its intended use. How is it supposed to be performing? Because that's where we've gone really, really deep. And it's our job to make sure we're communicating that clearly.
That makes a lot of sense. And it's the perfect way to segue to really what is the future of surgical robotics. So you can look at it maybe in two parts. One, this hyper focus, your specialty. What does the future look like maybe in the near future and then a decade from now? And then more broadly, what do you hope to see in surgical robotics maybe 25 years from now? You started 25 years ago. What about 25 years from now?
Yeah. I believe strongly what you're starting to see is people deeply understanding the core challenges that clinicians are having, whether or not it's surgeries or interventions or even diagnostics. I think there's just this deep appreciation for how, a carefully curated set of technologies can make life easier, right? it's our job to understand those applications. And so what you're seeing balloon right now is going, there's been some great headway made into what robotics can do, with what we currently have. Now we're extrapolating that across so many different applications. And so I think we're going to continue to see, the options expand significantly. But I don't think everything will make it. Like, I'm hoping Capstan makes it, with what we're trying to do. But I think you're going to get the clinicians are going to say, this is the right tool to do what I'm seeking to do. And they will select and kind of cull the massive field that's coming in.
So a broadening and then an edit down
And then,
for need.
Yeah. That's how I think it's going to happen.
Beautifully said, as always. So thank you again, Maggie Nixon, CEO of Capstan Medical.
Yeah.
Capstan Medical. Thank you so much for joining us on The Future Of.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it.